Blessings and welcome back to the path to freedom, this beautiful path that we get to walk, where we get to set ourselves free from being moved, being touched, where we get to take our power back, where we get to stand in our own authority, where we get to cultivate the ability to respond rather than react, where we get to reclaim our minds, reclaim our power, where we get to rise above being numbless, mindless, reactionary drones, where we get to more and more choose peace and love and joy and harmony. Not only choose to experience it, but choose to be it, to be peace, to be love, to be joy, to be harmony, to be wholeness, to be abundance, to be beauty. Because these are not foreign to us, these are not outside of us, but these are inherent within every single one of us. These are the truth and essence of who we are. So we get to wake up to that, and as we continuously wake up to that, our lives begin to be transformed, because we're no longer giving power to something outside of us, dictating how we are to feel and what we are to think, but we are more and more taking our power back, so that we get to be the light that we are, the love that we are here on this planet, being beneficial presences, being of service, being of value to the evolution of the human consciousness, which is much needed right now at this time. There's so many speaking into it. That this is the most transformational space that has ever been in human history, where so much is happening. There's a spiritual transformation happening. There's a spiritual evolution happening. There is a reconfiguration and up-leveling of the human consciousness. It will happen, but for it to happen, and it is happening, it is happening now, but for it to happen, we need to step into the new. We cannot just sit around and wait for the new to happen, but we need to actively and consciously participate in that which is happening. So this was a completely different introduction than I had imagined, but it is all good. It is all well, and it speaks actually beautifully into the topic of today, which is forgiveness, a must if we want to be free, part 2. So my name is Daniel Roquillo, and welcome back, or welcome. I'm so grateful and honored and privileged that you're choosing to join me on this path, that you're choosing to join me in this message, as we're exploring another aspect of forgiveness. So there was a part 1, which is where we explored a forgiveness prayer as a means to release the negativity, the resentment, the anger, the animosity that we are holding on to, the blame stories, the victim stories that we are holding on to, the complaining, the judgments, the opinions as to what should and should not be, what another is doing, what they're not doing. So let us just briefly revisit the idea of forgiveness, that it is not about us making up. This is not about us accepting hurtful behavior or condoning any behavior on another's part just so that we can stay friends or stay in the relationship or whatnot. Forgiveness has pretty much nothing to do with the other individual. It is all about us. It is all about us setting ourselves free to soar, to shine, to glow, to be in that ever-expanding peace and love and joy and harmony and wholeness and beauty and abundance, regardless of what they are doing, regardless of what they are not doing, regardless of any condition and circumstance outside of us. So that is what forgiveness is about. It's like that Indian old It's like that old Native American saying that goes, holding on to resentment, negativity is like swallowing poison, hoping that it will hurt someone else. Or actually, I think the saying goes, hoping that the other will die. So we are setting ourselves free. We are releasing the negativity that is poisoning our own minds, that is poisoning our bodies, that is polluting our bodies, that is polluting every cell. Because whenever we hang on to negativity and anger and resentment, that is us polluting us. That is us hurting us. So from this perspective, when we do the work of releasing the negativity so that we move ourselves into peace and love and joy and harmony, we are allowing for beautiful healing chemicals to be produced, distributed. Healing chemicals that does not weaken the immune system, but that does strengthen the immune system. Chemicals that do not speed up the aging process, but that actually slow down the aging process. Chemicals that do not facilitate and create an environment for diseases and illnesses to fester and thrive, but an environment that allows for health and wholeness to thrive and to reign supreme in our lives. So this is all about us giving ourselves the gift of release, of healing. So in that sense, forgiveness is an act of self-love. So in this session, this part 2, there's another tool that I want to introduce and offer that is equally powerful, just as powerful as that forgiveness prayer. It's just different. It's just another set of tools. This tool is made up of 4 statements that we get to say to ourselves. We are wise to say them out loud, just as we were wise to say the prayer out loud, because words have vibration. The sounds, something happens when we infuse our bodies with sound. Sound has frequency. So when we say the words out loud, it allows for us to be focused in a way that just thinking the words to ourselves does not do. But also the sounds, the vibration of the sounds, the vibration of the words help facilitate the healing. So we're wise to say these statements out loud. We're also wise to, as always, as with the forgiveness prayer, we're wise to make sure that we are in a safe and secure environment, a safe and secure space, a space where we know that we will not be disturbed for a few minutes, so that we can do this undisturbed, uninterrupted. So I'm going to go through these 4 statements one by one. I'm going to name them, and then we're going to go through them again, having a deeper exploration of each of them. So these 4 statements, they are actually, before we move into the statements, no, let us do it this way. So I'm going to say the statements, I'm going to name them, and then we're going to have some breathing, a moment of coming back to the breath, and then we will explore the statements. So these statements are, the first one is, you have no power over me. The second statement is, I stand in my own authority. The third statement is, I set myself free. And the fourth statement is, I set you free. And actually, I just added a 5th statement that I forgot. And the 5th statement is, all is well between us. So these are the 5 statements that we will explore in just a moment. But before we move into the exploration, let's have a moment of coming back to the nowness of this moment, of resetting, of reclaiming our minds. So I invite us to put a smile onto our face, allowing for those healing allowing for those healing tonic chemicals to be produced and distributed. A smile, and then let's take a couple of deep and conscious breaths, breathing in. And releasing. Still smiling. Another deep breath in. And releasing. And I invite you to say after me, you have no power over me. I stand in my own authority. I set myself free. I set you free. All is well between us. All right, beautiful. And this is how we want to begin. Whenever we become aware, so the way to use these tools, both this one and the prayer that we talked about in part 1, is that whenever we become aware of being snagged, being hijacked, being held hostage, being attached to or identified with judgments, opinions, resentment, anger, thoughts as to what another should have done or shouldn't have done, what they should do or shouldn't do, that is the time for us to really pick up these tools and set ourselves free. And we always want to begin with coming back to the nowness of this moment. We always want to begin with having a moment of releasing our attachment from these thought forms, from the judgments. So to set ourselves free from that before we go to work in our minds, to have a space of peace, a space of release. And a beautiful way of doing that is to take these couple of deep and conscious breaths. A beautiful way of augmenting and supporting these breaths is by smiling. Because smiling is a spiritual principle, smiling is healing. So the signal that we're sending to the body whenever we're smiling, and it doesn't matter if we don't feel like smiling or not, the body doesn't know the difference. But what happens when we smile is that we send the signal to the body that all is well. So it begins to relax, it begins to release tension, it begins to produce these tonic chemicals, these healing chemicals. So this is a beautiful introduction to the healing work, to the forgiveness work. Taking these couple of deep conscious breaths, smiling, and then moving into these 5 statements. So let us run through them and explore them, what they mean, beginning with the first one. So the first one is, you have no power over me. So this is where we recognize and acknowledge that no one and no thing outside of us has any power to make us think or feel anything unless we give them that power. That we really have the power to turn our attention toward whatever we want to turn our attention. That we really have the power to choose to be in peace. Even when we're experiencing turmoil, we can still choose peace. Even when we're experiencing turmoil, we can still choose love. We do not need to just run with whatever the ego is throwing into our awareness, whatever projections, whatever excuses, whatever judgments that the ego is conjuring up. We don't need to run with it. But we can reclaim our power. We can reclaim our sanity. And this is a mandate that we have. This is a responsibility that we have. So we're reminding ourselves of the responsibility that we have to take our power back. So you have no power over me. And I want to say this as well. So when working with these 5 statements, the way to work with them is that we begin with the first one, you have no power over me, and we repeat that. So we would stand ourselves perhaps in front of a mirror, where we can look at ourselves to really give power to these words, where we can look at ourselves and we lean into, you have no power over me. And we keep repeating it. You have no power over me. You have no power over me. You have no power over me. We repeat it until we begin to feel the vibration of those words, until we begin to feel the release happening, until we begin to believe those words, until we begin to feel that we're taking our power back. So we may spend like a minute or a couple of minutes just on this first statement, repeating it over and over and over again. And if we are experiencing intense emotions like anger or sadness or something else, we're wise to infuse our words with this emotion. So we fuel the words, we fuel the statement with, or the statements with our emotions. So if we are experiencing anger, for instance, the way we would do it, or the way it would sound, was something like this: you have no power over me. You have no power over me. You have no power over me. So we go with the emotion. We let it flow. We let it rip. Not trying to mitigate the emotion, not trying to diminish it, not trying to deny it, but allowing it to have full sway, allowing it to not have full sway, allowing it to be fully expressed, the emotion. Emotions aren't bad, they aren't wrong. There's no danger in experiencing emotions. They are what they are. And this is for us to release. So we want to give ourselves the freedom to experience whatever it is that we are experiencing. So no spiritual bypassing here, no pretending that we're happy when we're not, no pretending that we're feeling good when we're feeling terrible. But allowing ourselves, embracing and allowing whatever it is that we're experiencing, and fueling these statements with whatever it is that we're experiencing. So we stay with the first statement, you have no power over me. We stay with it for as long as we need to, until we begin to experience or feel that it is moving us into releasing. Then and only then do we move on to the next statement, which is another reminder. I stand in my own authority. And this is simply another way of saying or repeating the first statements. So we're reminding ourselves that I have sovereignty over my own mind, that we have sovereignty. We have full power over our own minds. We have full control over our own minds. We have absolute authority over where we turn our attention. We have absolute authority over what we allow to be our experiencing of the experience that we're choosing. We have absolute authority to be in peace regardless of what another is doing or not doing, to be in joy, to be in love. They have no authority over us, they have no power over us, but we have absolute authority. We have absolute power over our minds, over our attention, over our experience. So we repeat this statement. I stand in my own authority. I stand in my own authority. I stand in my own authority. We repeat it as many times as necessary until we feel a further release. Until we begin to feel that this is so. This is so. I am standing in my own authority. I am standing in my own authority. And once again, if we're experiencing emotions, we fuel these emotions into the statements, into this work, allowing them to be expressed, allowing them to be released. Cool? And then we move on to the third And then we move on to the third statement, which is, I set myself free. Yet another way of saying the same thing. I set myself free to be in peace. I set myself free. I set myself free to be in joy, to be in harmony, to be in abundance, regardless of conditions and circumstances, regardless of what you are doing, what another is doing or not doing, what they're saying or not saying, regardless of anything, everything. This is the path to freedom. This is the path where we get to set ourselves free to be in that ever-expanding love, joy, peace, harmony, wholeness, where we get to set ourselves free to soar, to shine, to glow, where we get to set ourselves free to forever allow for greater and grander expressions of who and what we are. So we're reminding ourselves, we're treating ourselves into knowing that we are free. And the technology behind how this works is repetition. Repetition, repetition, repetition. So this is us treating our own minds to initially begin to believe that we are free, that no one has power over us, that we stand in our own authority, that we are free, that they're free, that all is well. And with repetition, over time, we begin to know this and we begin to live this. So this is a way of life. This is not something that we do once and then we're done with it, but this is something that we want to lean into. These tools, both these statements and the prayer, they are so powerful, and yet they are so simple. So simple. So we want to incorporate them into our everyday life in one way, shape, or form, right? Repetition is the key to learning anything. So this is us treating our own minds to know that we are free. We remind ourselves over and over and over again that we are free. We're setting ourselves free. So we repeat that over and over and over again until we begin to believe it, until we begin to feel it. And then we move on to the next statement, which is, and I set you free. So this is basically what we're basically saying is, not basically, what we are saying is that we give the other permission. We give the other the freedom to be who they are, where they are, when they are. Realizing, acknowledging that they have their own unique, perfect path, that they, in this and every single moment, is unique, perfect, whole, complete expression, emanation of God. And the only reason why we are holding on to, or the only reason we're experiencing judgments and opinions, is because we have expectations of where they should be, what they should be able to do, how far they should have come, who they should be. It is not them that is giving rise to the negativity within us. It is our judgments, our stories, our beliefs, our points of view that is giving rise to the negativity within us. So we're setting them free to be where they are, who they are, what they are, as furthering us setting ourselves free. As going deeper into setting ourselves free, we set them free. So we repeat that over and over and over again until we really begin to feel compassion and love for them. And compassion simply means the understanding of lack of understanding. So we're realizing that they are doing the very best they know how to do with what they have been given, with the experiences that they've had so far, where they are. They are doing the very best they know how to do. So we understand that, we acknowledge that, we realize that, we honor that, we move into that compassion. And this is forgiveness. Releasing the negativity, us setting ourselves free, us setting another individual free to be where they are, who they are, or a condition or circumstance. Right? And then we move into the last statement, which is all is well between us, or all is well between our souls, as a confirmation of the work that we have been doing. That in this now moment, regardless of what they did, what they didn't do, what they're doing, what they're not doing, all is well between us. We are not holding on to negativity. We are not holding on to resentment. This doesn't mean that we will ever be friends again. I mean, there are individuals in my life that I have forgiven, but I do not want to hang out with them. They may not have changed all that much. And so even though I'm not holding on to negativity, I do not want to move myself into that space again. I want to choose, or I'm choosing to hang out with individuals that I resonate with, that I vibe with, individuals that I'm speaking the same language with, whose lives are about the same thing that my life is about. I'm not holding on to the resentment to these individuals. I'm not holding on to the judgment to these individuals. I'm not holding on to the negativity towards these individuals that I used to, but I would not choose to hang out with them. But all is well between us at a distance. Kind of like the fire is hot. And if we stick our hand into the fire, we will get burned. So we may do it once, but once we've learned that lesson, we will not do it again. So we do not want to be all spiritual, thinking that we have to hang out with every individual and that we need to love to hang out with every individual. We absolutely have a mandate to be discerning where our company is concerned, to be very mindful of who we hang out with, to be mindful that we're hanging out in high-minded fellowship. So along this path, we're not only releasing the negativity that we're holding on to, but we will be called and we will be moved to release relationships, to release individuals that may have been a huge part of our lives, but we're no longer about the same thing. We're no longer moving in the same direction. That is not a failure. That is not something bad. That is not something I'm trying to think of a word. We all have a mandate to choose our company, and we're wise to choose our company wisely and mindfully, so that we hang out with individuals that support us, that uplift us, that hold us, that embrace us, that empower us, that inspire us. We're not obliged to hang out with individuals that do not fit into that category. But we are obliged, and we do have a responsibility to release our judgments about them, to release the negativity about them, so that we may set ourselves free to hang out in the higher vibrations of joy, peace, love, harmony, wholeness, beauty, intelligence, creativity, in high consciousness. So this is the tool of these 5 statements. It is very, very powerful, but as with all tools, it will do us no good unless we use it. So we are invited to use it. Before we move into the invitation, let us have a moment of resetting, of releasing, of coming back to the nowness of this moment. So in this now moment, I invite us to put a smile onto our face, allowing that beautiful smile to play across our face, allowing for healing chemicals to be released throughout our bodies. And let's take that first deep and conscious breath. breathing in. And releasing. And another breath in. And releasing. And I invite you to repeat after me. You have no power over me. I stand in my own authority. I set myself free, and I set you free. All is well between us. All is well between us. So thank you so much. Oh, we're not there yet. So these 4 statements, these 5 statements, they are a beautiful complement. They beautifully augment and support the prayer. So my invitation, before we move into the invitation, my invitation is that you try them both, that you utilize them both. If you haven't listened to that particular message, that message is called Forgiveness, a Must If We Want to Be Free, Part 1. Forgiveness, a Must If We Want to Be Free, Part 1. So the invitation for this session, for today, is for us to really lean into these 5 statements. Using our moments in between, whenever we become aware of being snagged by judgments or opinions, whenever we become aware of being attached to stories about what should and should not be, whenever we become aware of having given our power away to something outside of us, that's when we want to take the time to find a space, a place where we know that we will not be disturbed, where we know that we can safely and uninterruptedly move through these 5 statements. So it'll take us 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatnot. We do it out loud, and we do it until we feel the release. We stay on the one statement until we feel the release. Then we move on to the next one, and then we move on to the next one, and then we move on to the next one. But we do not move on to the next one until we feel the release from the current one that we are engaging in. Thank you so much, as always, for participating, for tuning in, for joining me. As always, I am blessed our days. I am blessed our ways. And I invite you to repeat after me, to say with me out loud, all is well. Something wonderful is happening. Everything's working for my highest good. Perfect preparation and unfolding is always happening. With much love and many blessings. Namaste.